What do you say to children who disappeared the moment your wife passed, who ignored your calls, blocked your messages, and treated your sorrow like an inconvenience, only to reappear the moment your name shows up online? The day my story went public, 3 identical texts hit my phone. Dad, can we talk? They had no idea what I'd already done, or how far beyond them my life had moved. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The memorial facility cleared out by 3 in the afternoon. Strangers lingered longer than my own children. I stood beside the casket, adjusting the flowers for the 4th time, waiting for footsteps that never came. The director approached with careful sympathy in his eyes, the kind reserved for abandoned old men. Mr. Traskir, we need to begin preparations for transport to the cemetery. I nodded. Still alone, my phone sat heavy in my pocket. 17 messages sent over 3 days. Rowan, Kira, Silas. Red receipts glowing blue on every single one. Not a word back, not even a sorry or can't make it. Just silence, cold and absolute. The viewing room had held 40 chairs. I'd arranged them myself the night before, spacing them carefully, imagining where each person would sit. Front row for family. My children's seats remained empty throughout the entire service. People noticed. How could they not? The absence screamed louder than any eulogy. At the gravesite, I watched them lower my wife into the ground. 23 people attended, neighbors, her book club friends, the woman who ran the corner bakery, the librarian who always saved new mystery novels for her, old co-workers from the hospital where she'd worked for 30 years. People who'd known her for months showed more respect than the children we'd raised for decades. Mrs. Haverman from 2 doors down touched my elbow as the ceremony concluded. Her eyes were red from crying, genuine tears for a woman who'd been her friend. Marlow, where are your kids? I thought they'd be here. I manufactured a smile that felt like broken glass cutting my face from the inside. They're busy. Life, you know. Work obligations. Can't always get away. She frowned, but didn't push. Everyone knew. Small neighborhoods always know when something is wrong, when the natural order has been disrupted. They'd watched my children grow up, had seen them drive past without stopping, had noticed the lights in my house staying on later and later as loneliness became my only companion. That evening, I sat in our kitchen, my kitchen now, scrolling through Rowan's social media. Photos from a rooftop bar uploaded 6 hours ago, same timestamp as the burial. He stood with friends, cocktail raised, wearing an expensive shirt I didn't recognize. Caption reading, "New chapter, new energy, letting go of the past and embracing what's next." I set the phone down carefully on the table, afraid if I gripped it too hard, something inside me would crack open and spill out. The same table where we'd eaten breakfast as a family. The same table where I'd helped them with homework, listened to their problems, celebrated their achievements no matter how small. The house felt enormous. Every room echoed with memories that now felt like accusations. Her reading chair sat empty by the window, the afternoon light falling across it, exactly as it had when she was alive. Her coffee mug still in the dish rack because I couldn't bring myself to put it away. That would make it real. That would mean accepting she was truly gone. The silence pressed against my eardrums until I thought I might scream just to hear something, anything. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked. Outside, a dog barked. Normal sounds of a world that kept moving while mine had stopped completely. I tried again the next morning. Sent photos of the flowers people brought. Roses, lilies, carnations, arrangements that covered every surface of the living room. A picture of her favorite hymnal from the service, the pages worn from years of use. A simple message to Kira. Your mother would have loved the roses, the pink ones especially. Would you like to come see them before they fade? I could make tea. We could talk. Delivered. Read at 10:47 a.m. No response. Silas, my youngest, had blocked my number entirely. When did that happen? While his mother was still alive or after? Had he made that decision standing at his apartment, thumb hovering over my contact, choosing erasure? Calls went straight to a generic voicemail. When I tried texting, the messages turned green, a small technological betrayal that somehow hurt worse than the silence itself. Even the phone knew I'd been cut off. I organized a small memorial reading at the local library 2 weeks later. Poetry my wife loved. Mary Oliver, Maya Angelou, Billy Collins. Words about nature and resilience and finding beauty in ordinary moments. I sent formal invitations, old-fashioned paper ones, addressed by hand in my careful script. Kira had spent her teenage years obsessed with theater, with words and performance and meaning. Surely this would reach her. Surely she'd remember sitting in the audience of my small productions, eyes shining with excitement. The library reading happened on a Tuesday evening. 12 people came. Elderly couples who'd known my wife from church. A few former nursing colleagues. Mrs. Haverman, of course, loyal to the end. Kira was not one of them. Her chair remained empty, a ghost presence more painful than absence. Mrs. Haverman asked again afterward, gentler this time, as we folded chairs and stacked them against the wall. "Marlow, is everything all right with your family? It's not like them. I remember when they were young, they adored you both. They're processing grief differently," I said. The lie tasted like copper pennies, metallic and wrong. Everyone handles loss in their own way. She squeezed my hand with her soft, papery grip. Grief does strange things to people. Pushes them away sometimes when they should come closer. Give them time. But this wasn't grief. Grief was messy and present and overwhelming. Grief was crying at random moments, being unable to eat, staring at photographs until they blurred. This was erasure, calculated, deliberate. They had decided somewhere in their busy lives with their important jobs and their social calendars and their friend groups that didn't include me, that I simply didn't matter anymore, that I was an inconvenience, a reminder of something they'd rather forget. Their mother was gone, and I was just the man who'd raised them. Apparently, that counted for nothing. I rode the bus home because my car had broken down 3 days after the service, and I couldn't afford repairs yet. Savings drained by medical bills, the last 6 months of treatment that insurance barely covered. Memorial expenses that added up faster than I'd imagined. All those years of covering their tuition and rent and emergencies they never thanked me for. Every dollar I'd saved had gone to them, and now I had nothing. The bus lurched through evening traffic, and I stared out the window at the passing billboards. Advertisements for lawyers, restaurants, upcoming concerts, lives happening everywhere except mine. One caught my eye. A theatrical poster, elegantly designed. A woman in a spotlight, face turned skyward, hands outstretched in an expression of transcendent emotion. Vesper Hale in the turning season, City Playhouse, now through December. I remembered Kira gushing about Vesper Hale years ago. Must have been 5, 6 years back. Magazine interviews spread across our coffee table. Poster on her bedroom wall. "She's everything I want to be, Dad. She makes art matter. She proves you can be successful and still create something real." I'd smiled and nodded, secretly proud that my daughter valued artistry, that maybe she'd inherited something meaningful from me after all. I whispered to the empty bus seat beside me, voice cracking slightly. I wonder if she even exists outside their world. I wonder if anything real exists there anymore. The bus rolled on. The poster disappeared behind me. Everything disappeared behind me now. I used to be someone. That's the part people forget, or maybe never knew. Before the silence, before the abandonment, before I became the ghost in my own family, I was Marlow Traskir, playwright. Not famous, not wealthy, but real, recognized in certain circles, respected by people who understood craft. 28 years ago, a small theater in the Arts District produced my first full-length show. Margins of Light, it was called. A 3-act drama about a factory worker who discovers poetry after his son's passing, finding redemption through words when everything else failed him. Critics called it quietly powerful and emotionally devastating in the best way. My wife sat front row, center seat, every single performance. 6-week run. She never missed one. Didn't matter if she'd worked a double shift at the hospital, didn't matter if she was exhausted. She'd come backstage afterward, eyes bright with pride, and say, "You're going to change things, Marlow. You're going to make people feel what they've been afraid to feel." I believed her then, believed the world was full of possibility. That talent and dedication would be enough. We had 3 children across the next decade. Rowan, serious and sharp, born with an intensity that sometimes worried me. Kira, dramatic and passionate, every emotion turned up to maximum volume. Silas, quiet and observant, always watching from the edges of rooms. I wrote plays in our cramped apartment while they slept, laptop balanced on my knees, headphones on so the keyboard clicks wouldn't wake anyone. My wife worked double shifts nursing to keep us afloat. We were broke and exhausted and somehow happy. But children grow, and their needs multiply exponentially. Bigger apartments, better schools, college funds that swelled like threatening storms on the horizon, soccer leagues and music lessons and summer camps and all the things good parents were supposed to provide. My inconsistent theater income became a family joke first, then a point of mild shame, then eventually a source of deep resentment. "Dad's doing his side projects again," Rowan said once, 16 and cruel in the way teenagers master effortlessly. He'd just gotten his driver's license and was angry I couldn't afford to add him to our insurance immediately. "It's not a side project," my wife defended, voice sharp. "It's his calling. It's what makes him who he is." "Callings don't pay tuition," Rowan shot back. "Callings don't buy new cars or nice vacations. Callings are what people call their hobbies when they're too proud to admit they're failing." The words hung in the kitchen. My wife's face went pale with anger. I put a hand on her arm, stopping her from saying something we'd all regret. "He's young," I said quietly after Rowan stormed out. "He doesn't understand yet." But maybe he understood perfectly. Maybe he saw exactly what I was, someone who'd chosen passion over pragmatism and made his family pay the price. I took a job teaching English composition at a community college. Steady paycheck, benefits, health insurance that covered the basics, soul-crushing monotony that made every day feel like slow suffocation. I wrote less, produced less. The theater world moved on without me, younger voices taking the spaces I'd once occupied, and I told myself it was noble sacrifice. Fatherhood, responsibility, doing what needed to be done. I covered Rowan's rent when his first startup failed spectacularly. 8 months of payments, nearly $15,000. He never paid me back, never even acknowledged it beyond a quick thanks text. I covered Kira's car repairs when she rear-ended someone in her senior year of college. Bodywork, insurance deductible, rental car for 2 weeks, another few thousand gone. I covered Silas's unexpected medical bills after a skiing accident that left him with a shattered collarbone. Insurance covered some, but not the specialist visits, not the physical therapy. I worked summer sessions for 3 years straight to make up the difference, drained savings accounts, maxed credit cards, worked overtime whenever possible. My wife picked up extra shifts until her feet ached and her back screamed. We never took vacations, never updated our ancient car, never bought anything that wasn't strictly necessary. They called me soft, too quiet, not ambitious enough, not aggressive enough in pursuing financial success. "Why don't you write something commercial?" Kira asked during a particularly tense Thanksgiving. She was 22, home from graduate school, full of opinions about how the world worked. "Something that actually sells? Something people want to see instead of these depressing character studies nobody cares about?" He writes from the heart, my wife said firmly, her voice containing a warning Kira ignored. Kira rolled her eyes dramatically. Hearts don't pay mortgages, Mom. Hearts don't fund retirement accounts. You guys are going to be broke forever because Dad refuses to adapt to reality. I said nothing. Just cut my turkey and chewed mechanically. After she passed, I understood. I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost my only defender, the sole person who saw value in what I'd given up, what I'd become. Without her, I was just the failed artist dad who couldn't afford nice vacations, who drove a decade-old sedan held together by prayer and duct tape, who wore the same 3 sport coats in rotation until the elbows wore shiny. I stood at the public park fountain one evening, 3 weeks after the funeral. The water caught the sunset, turned gold and amber and deep orange. Stunning, painful, beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. I'd walked here because the house felt like a mausoleum, and I needed air that didn't smell like grief and old memories. An old man fed pigeons nearby, tossing breadcrumbs from a paper bag. We didn't speak, just 2 people occupying the same lonely space, both understanding that sometimes silence is its own conversation. My phone buzzed. For a wild, desperate second, my heart leaped. Maybe one of them finally, spam email. Act now, limited time offer on life insurance. I laughed, sharp and bitter, startling the pigeons into flight. The old man looked at me with mild concern, and I waved apologetically, turning away before he could ask if I was all right. Walking home as streetlights flickered on, I passed a community bulletin board outside a coffee shop. Flyers for yoga classes, dog walkers, missing cats with desperate owners offering rewards. Tucked in the corner, nearly hidden behind a larger advertisement, free theater workshop, rediscover your voice, no experience necessary, Wednesdays, 7 p.m., Riverside Arts Center. I pulled it down, folded it carefully, slipped it in my coat pocket without really knowing why. Maybe just to have something, some small piece of paper that suggested possibility still existed somewhere in the world. That night, exhausted and empty, I checked my email before bed. Inbox full of condolences I'd stopped reading because they all said the same useless things. Bills I could barely face, and one message that appeared by mistake, forwarded from an old theater listserv I'd forgotten I'd ever subscribed to. Open auditions new play by Jonas Kerwin, seeking fresh voices and bold stories, all submissions. Welcome, Riverside Playhouse, submissions due next month. Jonas Kerwin. The name resonated like a bell in the back of my mind, clear and insistent. Veteran producer, serious reputation, national recognition. I'd met him once, decades ago, at a regional theater festival. 3-minute conversation in a crowded lobby, but he'd liked my work then, told me to keep pushing, said I had something real worth developing. I stared at the email until the screen blurred and my eyes burned. Maybe. Just maybe. The Riverside Playhouse lobby smelled like old wood and fresh paint, that particular combination of history and renovation. Scaffolding visible through interior windows, drop cloths covering portions of the floor. A building being reborn, which felt appropriate somehow. I almost turned around twice before I reached the front desk. Once at the entrance, staring at my reflection in the glass door, seeing an old man in a threadbare coat. Once in the lobby itself, surrounded by posters of past productions that looked too professional, too polished, too far beyond anything I could contribute. A young woman with a nose ring and kind eyes looked up from her laptop. Here for auditions? Not exactly. I pulled a folder from my messenger bag, the leather cracked and worn. Inside, a script. 15 pages. Something I'd written years ago and never shown anyone except my wife. She'd read it in bed one night, tears streaming down her face by page 10, and said, "This is the best thing you've ever written. Promise me you'll finish it someday." I never had. Until 2 nights ago, unable to sleep, I'd printed what existed and decided tomorrow I'd either do something or accept I was completely finished. I was wondering if Mr. Kerwin accepts unsolicited submissions. She smiled warmly. Normally, no. But he's here today, actually. Hang on. She disappeared through a side door marked private. I stood in the lobby, suddenly aware of how threadbare my coat looked, how outdated my shoes were, how completely out of place I seemed. A poster on the wall advertised last season's shows, professional production photos, critical acclaim quotes, sold-out performance warnings, completely out of my league. Marlow Traskir? Jonas Kerwin emerged, older than I remembered, but still commanding. Silver hair swept back, sharp eyes that missed nothing, the posture of someone who'd spent 50 years evaluating whether art was real or performance, whether emotion was earned or manufactured. Mr. Kerwin, I don't want to waste your time. Then don't. Show me what you brought. I handed him the folder with shaking hands. He opened it right there, standing in the lobby under fluorescent lights, reading. 1 page, 2, 3. I stopped breathing somewhere around page 4, watching his face for any reaction. He looked up. Where have you been hiding? What? This. He tapped the pages with one finger. This is raw and honest and exactly what contemporary theater is drowning for lack of. This is real grief, real confusion, real humanity. Where have you been? Teaching community college English, I said numbly. Raising kids, living, surviving mostly. Well, stop hiding. He handed the folder back. Finish this, full length, 3 acts. I want to see the complete manuscript in 3 months. My hands shook, taking the pages. I don't know if I can. You can. You will. This is too good to abandon. He started to walk away, then paused, turning back. We have rehearsals today. Different production. Stick around if you want. Watch. Remember why you started doing this in the first place. I stayed. Sat in the back of the black box theater as actors ran scenes from something modern and sharp. The energy in the room, the focus, the way words transformed into living, breathing moments. I'd forgotten how much I missed this, how much of myself I'd buried. A woman entered stage left, mid-scene. Vesper Hale. I recognized her immediately from that bus poster, from Kira's old magazines, though she looked different up close. More real, less mythological, human in a way photographs never captured. She performed a monologue, something about loss and reinvention, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. When she finished, Jonas called notes from his director's chair, and she listened with complete attention, nodding, absorbing, asking clarifying questions that showed she understood craft at a fundamental level. After rehearsal broke, I tried to slip out quietly, not wanting to intrude further. Leaving already? Vesper stood beside the exit, pulling on a worn leather jacket. Up close, I could see the exhaustion around her eyes, the realness beneath the stage presence. Small scars on her hands from years of physical theater work. She was 44, according to interviews, though she could have passed for younger or older depending on the light. I didn't want to intrude, I said. Jonas doesn't invite people to stay unless he sees something worth developing. She extended a hand. Vesper. Marlow, I know who you are. My daughter used to have your magazine interviews all over our house. Something flickered across her face. Understanding? Sympathy? Used to? She grew up, moved on, decided theater wasn't practical enough for her life plans. Vesper studied me for a moment, and I had the uncomfortable feeling she saw more than I intended to show. Artists do that sometimes. See through the surface to the broken things underneath. Jonas showed me a few pages of what you brought. The emotional truth in those lines, that's rare. Don't waste it. The world has enough surface-level content. It needs more work that actually means something. She left before I could respond, disappearing into the parking lot. I walked home through evening streets, the folder tucked under my arm, something unfamiliar stirring in my chest. Hope, maybe, or just the memory of it. The ghost of what hope used to feel like before it got beaten out of me. That night, I found my old laptop buried in a closet under winter coats I hadn't worn in years. Booted it up. The startup screen took forever, the machine ancient and slow. Located the file I'd been too afraid to open for 3 years. The unfinished play. The one my wife had loved, had believed in, had begged me to complete before the cancer took her ability to read. I read what I'd written. 10 pages of dialogue, character sketches, scene outlines, raw and imperfect, and somehow still alive. Then I started typing. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize, a screenshot, a group chat. My stomach dropped before I even looked closely. Rowan, Kira, Silas. The message from a distant cousin I barely remembered. Did you guys know your dad is doing his hobby again? Saw him at some theater thing downtown? Looked pretty serious about it? Thought you'd want to know? Rowan's reply. Still pretending to be an artist, I guess. Some people never learn. Kira. Embarrassing. He never learned that ship sailed decades ago. Silas. Whatever. Not our problem. Not anymore. I set the phone down on the kitchen table. Stared at the screen until the words stopped making sense, became just shapes and pixels. Not anger. Not anymore. Anger required energy I didn't have. This was something else. Absolute clarity. The final severing of something that had been fading for years. I would rebuild on my own terms, and they would never be part of it. 3 months passed like water finding its level, steady, purposeful, quiet. I finished the play, not rushed, not desperate. Just honest work, built from mornings at the kitchen table when sunlight came through the window and made the dust motes visible, and late nights when the house was too silent to sleep anyway. Every word earned, every scene true, no shortcuts, no compromises. The story followed a man named Fletcher, whose adult children cut him off after his wife's passing, and his journey from complete despair to rediscovered purpose through an unexpected friendship with a younger artist. 3 acts, 14 scenes, moments of humor breaking through darkness, real human complexity instead of easy villains or simple heroes. Jonas read it in 48 hours, called me at 6 a.m, waking me from the first decent sleep I'd had in months. This is it, Marlow. This is what we're producing next season. This is exactly what American theater needs right now. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, not quite believing. You're serious? I don't joke about art. Never have. Come in tomorrow. We'll talk details, timelines, casting ideas. This is happening. Details meant contracts, paperwork I'd never navigated before, legal language that looked like a foreign alphabet. Jonas introduced me to Aura Delmont, a sharp-eyed lawyer in her 50s who specialized in theatrical rights and intellectual property, protecting artists from exploitation. You'll want everything protected, Aura said, laying out documents across a boardroom table at the theater. She wore reading glasses on a chain, professional but warm. Copyright registration, production agreements, revenue structures, subsidiary rights. Once this goes public, you need walls around what's yours. Strong walls. I'm not expecting much attention, I said honestly. She smiled, the expression containing knowledge I didn't yet possess. Expect more than you think. Jonas doesn't back mediocrity. He doesn't waste resources on work that won't resonate. If he believes in this, others will too. I signed where she indicated, initialed clauses I barely understood, trusting that these people, strangers 3 months ago, had my interests closer to heart than my own children ever had. Strange how loyalty can come from unexpected places. Vesper started appearing at script discussions. Not every session, but enough that I began expecting her presence, began unconsciously writing with her voice in mind for certain characters. She had a way of cutting through pretense, asking questions that made scenes sharper, clearer, more honest. This moment here, she said once, tapping a page during a coffee shop meeting near the theater. Rain streaked the windows outside. the father's silence after his son dismisses him. That's devastating. But can we see his face? Just a stage direction, something physical that the audience can hold on to. I added, he turns toward the window, doesn't speak, doesn't move, just stops, as if someone cut his strings. Perfect, Vesper said softly. That's the image. That's what people will remember. We talked about my wife sometimes, about loss, about rebuilding when you think there's nothing left to build with. Vesper had lost her father young, carried grief like a familiar scar that never quite healed. We understood each other in ways that didn't require explanation or justification. One evening, she invited me to her apartment, a small loft filled with books and art prints and warm lamps that made the space feel alive instead of empty. We worked on a particularly difficult scene, her reading lines aloud while I adjusted dialogue on my laptop, both of us pushing for emotional authenticity. Around midnight, she made tea in a small kitchen that smelled like herbs and honey. We sat on her worn couch, scripts scattered around us like fallen leaves. Your kids? She said carefully. Do they know about this? About the play? No. Will you tell them? I thought about it. The messages I'd stopped sending, the calls I'd stopped making, the birthday that passed without acknowledgement, my 60th, not that it mattered. They made their choice. This is mine. Vesper nodded, didn't push, just understood. The play moved into pre-production. Jonas secured a venue, the main stage, not a small black box, a real production with real resources. Casting began. My name appeared on internal schedules, call sheets, production timelines, small recognitions, professional courtesies, the theater world welcoming me back like I'd never left, or perhaps like it had been waiting for me to find my way home. I sent one final message to my children, simple, neutral, testing the waters one last time. Hope you're well, thinking of you. Read receipts appeared within hours, all 3, no responses. I deleted their numbers after that, not blocked, just removed, clean separation. Like carefully cutting away what no longer belonged so something healthy could grow. A literary bookstore downtown requested a reading. 20 seats, low key. Jonas thought it would build anticipation, start generating word of mouth. I agreed, nervous but steady. The reading sold out in 3 days. They added a second session. That sold out too. At the first event, I stood before a small crowd, mostly older folks, serious readers, people who valued literature, and read the opening scene. My voice shook initially, then found its rhythm. The audience listened with the kind of attention that validates every doubt you've ever had, every moment you've questioned whether any of this matters. Afterward, a woman in an elegant blazer approached. Literary agent, according to her business card. This is exceptional. Have you thought about publication? Screen adaptation? There's serious potential here. I hadn't. Aura had, apparently, because she materialized beside me with business cards and careful deflections. All inquiries through representation, please, will be in touch. Representation. Legal protection. Professional machinery working on my behalf. I had infrastructure now. Walking home that night, I passed a bus stop. Different route than before, but the same sense of motion, of life continuing regardless of individual grief. A young couple waited, the woman showing her partner something on her phone. They were laughing, easy and comfortable, the way people in love laugh. I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, moving forward because staying still meant drowning. Jonas called 2 weeks later, "Sit down for this." I'm already sitting. Channel 8 wants an interview, arts and culture segment. They're doing a feature on regional theater renaissance, and they want you as the centerpiece. The comeback story, the artist who disappeared and returned stronger. My stomach dropped. Public exposure, cameras, questions. I don't know if I'm ready. You are ready. You do this. This is how careers reignite, Marlow. This is how we build momentum that becomes unstoppable. I said yes. Because saying no felt like hiding again, and I was done hiding. The interview was scheduled for the following Thursday. I rehearsed answers at the public park fountain, speaking to empty air, feeling ridiculous and determined in equal measure. What would I say? How would I explain years of silence, of retreat, of slow suffocation? Vesper called the night before. Breathe. Be honest. That's all they want. That's all anyone ever wants. Authenticity. I've never been good at this part. The performance of being myself. You've never had anything this real to talk about. This isn't performance. This is just truth. She was right. As usual. The television studio felt surreal. Bright lights that made my eyes water. Makeup artists dabbing powder on my face, transforming me into a television version of myself. A producer explaining shot composition while I nodded like I understood, absorbing none of it. Everything moved fast and professional and utterly foreign. The host, a woman named Candace something, smiled reassuringly backstage. Professional warmth, the kind developed over years of putting nervous people at ease. We'll keep it conversational. Just tell your story. Don't worry about being polished. Authenticity always reads better than perfection. My story, the resurrection, the quiet years, the late-night writing sessions fueled by grief and determination. The play about a man who loses everything and has to decide whether to disappear or rebuild from ashes. Why now? Candace asked on camera, lights blazing, her expression genuinely curious. Why return to theater after so long away? I thought about my wife, the funeral, the empty house, the silence that had become my constant companion. Because I remembered who I was before I forgot, I said, the words coming without planning. Because grief can either destroy you or remind you what matters. I chose the reminder. The interview lasted 15 minutes, felt like 15 seconds, a blur of questions about craft, about resilience, about the play's themes. I answered honestly, without filter, and hoped it would be enough. Jonas called before I even left the studio parking lot. That was perfect, authentic, human, exactly what we needed. You're going to be everywhere after this airs. The segment aired 3 days later on a Tuesday evening. I watched from my living room, alone, feeling exposed and strangely calm. The man on screen looked like me but sounded more confident, more certain. Television magic, or maybe just the truth coming through finally. Within hours, my phone started buzzing. Old colleagues from decades past, theater friends I'd lost touch with, students from my teaching years who'd gone on to various careers and somehow still remembered me. Everyone suddenly remembering I existed, offering congratulations and connection. Then the clip went viral. Not massive, not millions, but enough. Theater communities sharing it across social media platforms, arts blogs picking it up. Someone edited together my interview with rehearsal footage Jonas had filmed, and suddenly people were talking, discussing, analyzing. The bookstore called. We're getting requests for more readings, dozens of them. Can you do another event? Maybe a larger venue? I could. I would. The second reading event filled a larger venue, 50 seats, standing room only, cameras flashing, local press in attendance, my name trending in local art circles, appearing on recommendation lists, showing up in places I'd never expected. It felt unreal, like watching someone else's life happen around me while I observed from a distance. Aura called with updates almost daily. We're fielding inquiries, production interest from 3 separate companies, publication offers coming in. I'm building protections around everything, your rights, your work, your future earnings, your creative control. No one touches any of it without going through me first. No one exploits you. Thank you, I said, meaning it completely. She'd become more than a lawyer, a guardian, someone who understood the value of protection. Vesper came to the reading, sat in the back, inconspicuous, just another audience member. Afterward, she found me in the crowded lobby, where people pressed forward with congratulations and questions. "You're ready for what's coming," she said quietly. "What's coming?" She smiled, knowing. Everything. 2 days later, the texts arrived. I was on a bus heading to rehearsal, watching the city scroll past the window. 3 notifications lit up my phone screen in rapid succession, vibrating insistently. Rowan: "Dad, can we talk?" Kira: "Dad, can we talk?" Silas: "Dad, can we talk?" Identical messages, identical timing, identical phrasing, like they'd planned it together, rehearsed their approach, coordinated their sudden interest. I stared at the words, read them twice, 3 times, felt nothing except distant curiosity, like examining an insect specimen under glass. Clinical, detached. They'd seen something. The interview, probably. My name appearing where they could see it, in contexts they understood and valued. Recognition that fit their definition of success. Media attention that made me visible again in their world. I didn't reply. Slipped the phone back in my pocket and kept writing, watching buildings pass. At rehearsal, Jonas pulled me aside into a quiet corner backstage. "Big news. The Laureate Gala wants you as a guest of honor. It's prestigious, black tie, industry-wide recognition. They're giving you and Vesper a joint spotlight for revitalizing regional theater, for bringing authentic voices back to the stage." "When?" 3 weeks, Friday evening. Say yes now, because this doesn't happen twice. This is career-defining recognition. I said yes, without hesitation. That evening, I sat in Vesper's loft. She poured wine into mismatched glasses, handed me one. We didn't talk about the texts immediately, though I suspected Jonas had told her. Theater communities share information quickly. "Are you afraid?" she asked finally. "Of what?" "Of them showing up, making demands, trying to insert themselves into what you've built, trying to benefit from work they mocked." I considered it carefully. "No, because they can't reach what I've protected. Aura made sure of that." She raised her glass. "To walls that hold, to boundaries that matter." We drank to that. The texts continued. Daily now, then hourly. Voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. Friends of theirs, probably, trying different angles. Emails to addresses I'd stopped checking. They were trying every channel, every angle, suddenly desperate to reconnect, to be part of something they'd dismissed. I responded to none of it. Not a single word. Complete silence. The same silence they'd given me. Aura called during one particularly insistent barrage. "Your children are attempting contact through multiple channels. What do you want me to tell them if they escalate? If they try legal approaches?" "Nothing. They're not part of this. Not part of my life anymore. They made that choice clearly." "Understood. I'll prepare documentation if needed." The gala approached. Invitations designed and printed on heavy cardstock. Guest lists finalized and verified. Aura confirmed my +1. Vesper confirmed security protocols. Confirmed that only names I personally approved would be permitted entry through any entrance. My children's names were not on that list. Were not on any list. Jonas arranged a final run-through at the theater. Press would be there. Photographers. Critics. The machinery of public recognition grinding into motion, building anticipation. I stood backstage in my new suit, the first tailored clothing I'd owned in 20 years, purchased specifically for this moment, and Vesper appeared beside me, elegant in deep emerald. "This is your moment," she said quietly. "Everything you've earned through pain and persistence. Everything they tried to make you believe you'd never have. Every doubt they planted, you've overcome. I still can't quite believe it's real." She took my hand, squeezed once, firm and grounding. "Believe it. And when they see what you've become without them, when they understand what they lost, don't flinch. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just stand in your truth." I wouldn't. I couldn't. Not anymore. The night before the gala, I received one final text from Rowan. "We're coming to see you tomorrow. We need to talk about family, about Mom's memory, about making things right." I turned off my phone, set it in a drawer, went to bed early, sleeping deeply for the first time in months. Tomorrow would handle itself. The Laureate Gala occupied a renovated industrial space downtown, all exposed brick and crystal chandeliers and carefully curated elegance. Photographers lined the entrance, red carpet stretched toward glass doors. Everything gleamed. I arrived with Vesper. Both of us dressed formally, both of us calm. She wore deep emerald. I wore my new suit with unexpected confidence. "Ready?" she asked. "Completely." We stepped out, cameras flashed. Someone called Vesper's name, someone else called mine. We walked the carpet together, neither of us rushing. Inside, the venue hummed with conversation and champagne and the particular energy of success. Jonas found us immediately. "You look perfect. Both of you. The board chair wants to meet you before speeches start." He led us through the crowd to a distinguished older woman with sharp eyes and an elegant smile. Introductions, handshakes, questions about the play, the process, the vision. I answered honestly, and she seemed genuinely pleased. "We need more artists like you," she said. "Real voices, authentic work." "Thank you." Jonas leaned close. "Your children are outside. Security stopped them at the entrance. They're insisting they're family, demanding access. They're not on the guest list. You're sure?" "Completely sure." He nodded, respected it. The evening proceeded. Dinner, toasts, awards presented. I barely tasted the food, my attention focused on what was coming. Finally, the board chair approached the podium. The room quieted. Our next honorees represent the heart of why we gather tonight. Regional theater thrives when artists refuse to compromise, when they choose truth over trends, when they rebuild after life tries to break them. Please welcome playwright Marlow Traskir and actress Vesper Hale. Applause. Vesper and I rose together, walked to the stage, stood before several hundred people under lights that felt strangely familiar. I took the microphone. "Thank you for this recognition," I began. 3 months ago, I was nobody, a washed-up teacher with unfinished work and no belief that any of it mattered. Then a few people saw something I'd stopped seeing in myself. Jonas Kerwin gave me a chance when he didn't have to. Aura Delmont protected my work when I didn't know it needed protecting. Vesper Hale reminded me what real art looks like. And my late wife, who isn't here but is always here, she never stopped believing I'd find my way back. This moment belongs to them, to everyone who builds artists up instead of tearing them down, to everyone who sees value in work that doesn't come easy or fast or with guarantees. That's what matters. That's what lasts. Thank you. Applause again, warm, sustained. Vesper hugged me briefly. As we left the stage, Aura appeared. She handed the board chair a leather portfolio. Legal protections, foundation structures, beneficiary arrangements, everything organized. The board chair opened it, scanned the contents, nodded. "This is excellent work. Everything properly established and protected. Your royalties, your rights, your creative control, your legacy, all properly documented and secured." Outside the venue, according to security, my children stood watching the speech on an overflow screen. Rowan, Kira, Silas, not admitted, not acknowledged, just watching their father receive recognition for work they'd dismissed, beside a woman they'd idolized, in a world they couldn't access. Vesper and I left through a side entrance. A car waited. The driver opened the door. As we pulled away, I saw them for just a second through the window, standing near the main entrance, looking lost and small and completely out of place. The car turned the corner. They disappeared. I leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes, felt something inside me settle completely. Vesper squeezed my hand once. The revenge was complete. The victory was mine. Everything I'd built, Everything I'd protected, everything I'd become, it was untouchable, unreachable, beyond them forever. I smiled in the darkness of the car, feeling satisfaction wash through me like warm light.